ジョーの野郎。鬼姫が完全にぶっ潰しやがって。
Oh my god. Hello everyone, welcome to Joe Consume Cinema. I'm your host, Rikishi Taro, and today we have Ashita no Joe, episode 10. So we got introduced to a new character, very interesting, very capable. First guy to, defeat Joe one-on-one other than Dangpei, and there seems to be a very consistent theme here. Joe is very talented in his own right, but he's undisciplined, he doesn't have the training, and guys like Dangpei and Rikishi, who obviously do have a lot of training, can defeat him, not easily because he does put up a really good fight, but he's going into it with a disadvantage, and he's so arrogant, and, part of that is just his age and also his upbringing, or lack thereof, I should say. He's in a position where he just insists on learning the hard way all the time, it seems. I don't think there's any way, possible for him to escape the island. At some point, he has to come to terms with that, and I do think that Rikishi is probably going to be either a rival or potentially even, I could see a sparring partner situation going forward. Maybe Rikishi takes Joe under his wing and kind of shows him the ropes of the boxing world, since, Dangpei can only at the most send a letter and he hasn't sent one yet. And yeah, honestly, I just want to get right to this, but before we begin, as always, remember to blank, blank, and blank. Still very much a small channel, so every like, comment, share, subscribe we can get really helps out. I really appreciate it. Patreon link down below. With that, let's get right to it. Sorry, just trying to learn the lyrics. Scream of the Red Sunset. Yeah, it seems his influence lingers. They're much more independent-minded now. Let's see. No, he just sent it right back. Yeah, that was one hell of a punch. Learning boxing really is his salvation. It's just he's so goddamn stubborn. Are they gonna send their own letters?
Rikishi.
そう、力石徹。プロボクシングウェルター級6回戦ボーイ。
6 round boy?
デビュー以来13試合連続ノックアウト勝ちの強さだった。しかし意外なところに落とし穴があった。いい気になんな、八百長野郎。どうせ八百長じゃねえか。ある試合で観客の汚いヤジにカッとなり、その観客に瀕死の重傷を負わせてしまったのだ。彼を待ち受けていたのは非常の殺し屋という悪名と。
Oh shit, he got banned for life.
力石はその処分を不満として方々で暴力事件を引き起こして。
おめえにはがっかりさせられたぜ。あの先生の左ジャブを受けた。実は俺は嬉しかったんだ。てっきりおめえがプロだと思ったんだよ。だがすぐ尻尾を出しやがった。このど素人めが。
He wanted to see if he'd move. He's still way too out of it to fight.
ご心配なく先生の言われた通りかどうか確かめてみたんですよ。
まるでふぬけです。あの分では全開しても立ち直れるかどうかわかりませんな。
矢吹が脱走しました。
Was he playing possum? Well, he got through the gate this time. He still has to get, over the barbed wire fence and down the cliff. And then, what's he gonna do, swim?
俺はかけてもいい。矢吹は戻ってきますよ。必ずね。実はこの俺を忘れて逃げるはずがねえんだ。くたばってはいたが、奴の目は負け犬の目なんかじゃなかった。
I think he kind of respects that. Yeah, he's not gonna just be able to let it go.
So?
負け犬め。負け犬め。
He's gonna fucking drown.
おめえは俺の明日だ。明日のジョーだ。おい若いの、そんなところで何をしておるんだ。まさか身投げじゃあるまい。おお、日向ぼっこか。風流だな。よっしゃ、こうやって少年院に手紙を届けるのもしんどいわ。どうだい若いの、この手紙をわしに代わって届けてくれんか。
こいつはおかしいや。やっと抜け出した少年院に届けろだと。
おお、これこれ。
ん？
He recognizes it.
太郎。お、キノコのもある。ヒョロマツのもだ。サチのも。こいつは驚いた。あいつら手紙を書くなんて洒落たまね。いつ覚えたんだよ。
背景、上兄、お元気ですか。俺たちはさえねえ。兄がいねえから寂しくてたまらない。兄から返事が来ないので断平おっちゃんも参ってる。返事ください。
兄のボクシングの練習をしている姿を夢に見るそうです。僕も見ました。
サチは字が描けないので絵を描きます。チャンピオンになったジョーアニーの絵です。かっこいいで
That's
しょ。
cute.
これが俺かい。ひどいもんだな。
ほら、もう一通来てるぞ。
Dong pays. You need to learn that goddamn punch. If you had that punch, you might have been able to knock him down.
そうだジョー、もっと内側を狙ってえぐり込むように打つんだ。よーし、かかってこい。
なるほど。断平親父に教わった左ジャブだけが本当ってわけかい。そうか。ここは一つあの親父の思うツボにはまってやるか。そうするしか方法はねえようだな。
Yes, here we go.
へへ、リリースさんよ。悪いが脱走は後回しにしたぜ。プロボクサーだかなんだか知らねえが、俺のパンチが子供騙しかどうか、おめえのひん曲がった鼻に嫌とよと叩き込まなきゃどうしても気が済まなくなっちまったのさ。
This is awesome.
待ってろ力士、俺はまだ負けちゃいねえぞ。負けちゃいねえんだ。
やるぞ、やるぞ、やるぞ。おいらにゃ戦う。
This is awesome.
明日はきっと何かある。
力士、俺はもう一度挑戦するために戻ってきたぜ。
ほら、ジョーの兄からこれが。
また突っ返されてきたのか。
I think this one is real.
ケチケチしねえでドカドカボクシングの通信教育ってやつを送ってよこせ。何が何でも叩きのめせない気の済まない野郎が俺の前に現れやがったんだ。
こいつは手強い。それだけにやりがいもあるな。にしろ右ストレートは覚えちまった。当分は独房暮らしだから授業の時間はあり余ってるんだ。どんな理由からにせよ、ジョーの野郎がボクシングというものに燃え始めたんだ。なあ、素晴らしいじゃねえか。
Okay, took some time just to gather my thoughts. That was an excellent episode, one of the best so far, and I've enjoyed every episode. This is really, really cool. So we have the direct aftermath of the fight. You know, Joe has been laid out. He's suffered a concussion. they have him in the hospital bed, and he's just like staring up blankly into space. His eyes are open, but he's not there. Rikishi comes to see him to see, just how defeated he really is, and he throws that punch, that stops just before hitting. And he sees that, Joe has some potential. Those left jabs were legit, but everything else was sloppy and just unprofessional, really amateurish. But he thinks he might have something interesting on his hands, something to keep him busy. We learned about Rikishi's backstory. He was once, a really good fighter, moving his way up the ranks and, potentially even challenging for, a world title. But he has an anger problem. That guy that was outside the ring was talking shit to him, and he didn't hesitate to knock his teeth out and almost killed him too. After that, he just took any opportunity to, kind of scratch that itch, that need for violence, and he was beating people up in the street and eventually, got sent here. It's a matter of pride, I would say, where when he wounds Joe's pride, by calling him a loser like that, he knows that Joe just can't let that go. And even though, they all think he's, zombified, he's just out of it, that wound to his pride will make it so, he'll become more docile and, much more easier to control. He takes that opportunity to escape, and, he's running along the beach, celebrating his freedom, only for him to, eventually come back to that haunting feeling of, I let this guy beat me, and I just can't do that. I have to, get revenge here. It's a really great scene where he's running on the beach, all excited, and then he's like, you know what, screw this, I'm just going to escape. He starts trying to swim. There's no swimming to shore. They're way too far out. They're so far out you can't even see the shore from, like, all the way up at the top, many times over the horizon, and it just doesn't matter. They're way, way too far out for a human to swim it. Joe tries anyway, because, he's the most stubborn guy in the show, and nearly drowns, gets washed up onto shore. Just so happens that the guy who's delivering the mail from the boat, sees him on the shoreline, jokingly says to him, hey, I hope you're not trying to commit suicide out here. And he says, no, I'm just enjoying the sun. Then he sees the letters, the one from Dangpei especially, but also the ones from the kids are really cute and special. Sachi doesn't know her letters yet, so she just draws a picture of Joe as, a successful boxer, a champion, and, he laughs at it, but it's also really touching. So Joe comes to a very important decision. I really want to beat this guy, but as I am right now, just isn't going to cut it. Even Rikishi says that the left jabs are, very high level, like pro-level boxing type punches, but everything else was just sloppy and unprofessional and really not worthy of, his potential. And that's the thing that I think that gets at Joe the most. Joe finally recognizes the truth that everything that Dangpei taught him is real and effective in a fight. Everything else, him just doing what he wants, going by the wayside, is effective against people that don't know how to fight, like those Yakuza guys and thugs off the street, but against a real boxer, it's just not going to work. So we finally have one of the most important moments in the entire show. Joe is starting to take boxing seriously, and he sent that letter to Dangpei and, all the kids that send me as much information on boxing as you can. Don't hold anything back. He tried to escape, so now he's in solitary confinement, and he's got nothing to do except, shadow box and, work on this. He's highly motivated to beat Rikishi, and it was just a really cool moment and one of the best moments in the show thus far, I would say. And, we're getting the hint of character growth. Right now, Joe's motivation is beating Rikishi. And while that's not exactly, the noblest of motives, he's doing something that I think is going to improve his life in the long run by learning boxing. And I think over time, the good qualities in boxing isn't just, increasing your ability to fight. It does do that, but more importantly, it teaches you self-discipline and self-control, and overall just makes you a better, more controlled human being that's, capable of controlling their emotions. And I think this is the path where he starts to become more adult, which is a very much needed thing at this point. Yeah, it was another really cool episode, one of the best so far, and every episode has just been fire. So yeah, I'm really loving the show. It's really going somewhere, and I look forward to the next one. Going to get started on that right away. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. As always, thanks for watching, and peace.